When we think about appreciative inquiry, what typically pops to mind is David Cooperrider's 4Ds. You remember discovery. When we discover the best of what is, we may use moments of excellence or another technique to dig deep and explore exceptional experiences, moments, and the like. The next D is that dream, when we allow ourselves to be expansive and imagine what could be, when we explore the limitless potential and possibilities. And then the design, when we build dialogue about what could and should be, when we create conversations that build energy that's focused on the positive and on the fulfillment of the dream. And then destiny, that last D, when we immerse ourselves and our collaborators in creating, in building the dream, in fulfilling our limitless potential. I'd like to spend a little bit more time doing a refresher or a reminder on the 5 generic processes of appreciative inquiry. This is an important tool that leaders in just about any industry, any organization can use to tackle many different dilemmas. Now, some people see these as processes. I think of them as a process. Some people see them as embedded in the 4Ds. I see them as a standalone process completely unto themselves. And I see them as a very useful process for leaders who can't quite embrace the 4Ds. So what I know about the 5 generic processes is that they are more appealing to some organizations. I don't quite know why, but I found that some organizations, some leaders, cannot wrap their heads around the 4Ds. And that's why we're here, to explore ways to use the 5 generic processes as a framework for addressing organizational dilemmas. As we get started, I want to review the steps in the process. I think it's important to have a review. The first is choose the positive as the focus of inquiry. Second, inquire into exceptionally positive moments. Third, share the stories and identify life-giving forces. 4, create a shared image of a positive future. 5, innovate and improvise ways to create that future. Starting at the top, choose the positive as the focus of inquiry. Those of us familiar with appreciative inquiry know that questions are fateful. The questions that we ask guide our inquiries, our explorations. They determine the direction in which we move. As you begin the process, determine which positive elements you want to focus on. For instance, if you're seeing a lot of turnover in a department, in a position, or throughout the entire organization, you have an important decision to make. Are you going to inquire about why people are leaving? Are you going to use that as your focus? Or are you willing to explore why people stay? Why people stay is clearly a choice that is positive in your focus of inquiry. It's positive, it's probable, and it can help you create retention strategies by identifying the factors that keep people committed to the organization and their work. Okay, the positive is your focus of inquiry. Now it's time to inquire into exceptionally positive moments. That's what the theorists say, but I spin it differently. I say inquire into positive moments. They don't all have to be exceptional, they just have to be positive. I make this distinction because I don't believe our work or our lives are made up of all exceptionally positive moments, but I do think they're comprised of many simply positive moments. I think that the search for the exceptional wastes a lot of energy. Let's turn our attention into the vast number of simply positive moments, because that's what's going to give us a lot of practical data. I know it makes me sound like I'm not being true to the principles and the tenets of appreciative inquiry, like I'm a heretic. It's just that my experience as a consultant has shown me how important it is to spend energy in the realm of the positive and to be grateful when the exceptional shows up. There are so many ways to inquire into positive moments. Those of us steeped in appreciative inquiry know about the interviews. They're wonderful. It's exciting to send people out in the organization with a slate of questions to gather data on positive moments. But I've learned that focus groups and very short surveys are equally as effective at inquiring into those positive moments. Use the information gathering method that's going to work best for your organization. I want to go back to our example, investigating why people stay. If you're inquiring into positive moments, you may ask employees to share a story of a time when they were really proud to work for the organization. Or you may invite them to tell you about a time when they felt most connected to the organization. Or you may ask them to share the best experience they've had working there. Be sure that you use questions that allow people to really describe the positive moment in detail. Allow them to relive the experience. Allow them to immerse themselves in the positive memories. That's the data that you need to move forward. It allows people to get that feel-good feeling from focusing on something that was really good, that was affirming. You're not gathering stories just for the sake of gathering them. The next step is to share the stories and identify the life-giving forces. Compile all of those stories. Capture the best of what exists in the organization. Capture the special memories that people have shared. It's challenging to share every single story in a very large organization. However, with very thoughtful, creative effort, you may be able to. Maybe you've got a great intranet. Maybe you have other means of communicating with all employees. Do whatever is going to work for you. Now, I'm a big fan of thematic analyses. You can track the themes that came up in all of the stories and then share them instead of sharing every single story. Remember, make this process your own. If you want to share every story, go for it. If you like thematic analysis, go for it. If you have some other way of gathering your data and communicating it, use your unique method. As you're pulling the stories together and looking at the themes, you'll be able to identify the life-giving forces. Now, in my work, I refer to them as affirming forces. Sometimes it's hard to get people to buy into that whole life-giving forces language. The next step in the process is to create shared images of a positive future. This asks you to crystallize, to clarify who you as an organization really want to be so that you can create more of that, so that those stories can become the embodiment of the organization and who it intentionally becomes. In the case of our retention example, galvanize the organization around creating goals at the macro and the micro levels that will create deeper commitment and deeper employee engagement. Use creative techniques to invite multi-level cross-functional teams to create the image of the future based on what you learned from exploring the positive moments. They may come up with a new vision. They may recreate your mission. They may develop core values. Whatever it takes to help people visualize who and what you intend to become. How you create the shared images will depend on a few things. First, the culture of your organization. Second, what do you want the culture to evolve into to have the positive future you imagine? Third, what resources are you able and willing to allocate? Fourth, what are the parameters that have been set for this work? Those 4 factors have to be considered when you begin thinking about recreating the organization. The sky is never the limit. There are always resource constraints, and there's already a culture that is deeply embedded. I suggest doing a reality check and then moving forward. I'm not suggesting that you view the existing reality as unchangeable. No, I want you to acknowledge what is and then go forward. And that leads us to the fifth step in this process. Innovate and improvise ways to create the desired future. This means you'll be looking at everything in the organization. I mean the people, the processes, the practices, the services, the systems, the relationships, everything. You'll be devising concrete strategies to create alignment with the desired future. So I want to go back to our retention example. If you're going to innovate and improvise to create an environment where people want to stay, where they have an affective commitment to the organization, where they have heart connections to each other and to the enterprise, where you become an employer of choice, you may decide to change the structure of your departments. You may move to flatter, team-based structures. You may decide to use 360 evaluations to measure leadership performance. You may decide that you want to streamline some of your processes. You may decide that some of your practices are really obsolete. Whatever you decide to do, it needs to be in complete alignment with who you've decided to become. You get my point. You'll be thoroughly analyzing the organization and making changes so that the future moves from the dream or from the wish to reality. Now, it's hard work. Expect resistance, and you still have to push forward. You got a lot of data that will enable you to have forward momentum in the first 4 steps of the process. Now you have to use that data to create the future that moves you into your most powerful, positive potential. As I wrap this up, I encourage you to consider the positive focus that this process fosters. It gives you a framework for dealing with your dilemmas in a way that allows you to move from a deficit-based model to something more affirming and inspiring. Try the 5 processes. Just try it. Start with something small. Start with something manageable. Develop mastery of this approach to appreciative inquiry. Once you develop mastery, you will be amazed at how powerful these 5 generic processes are. You'll be amazed at how useful they are to creating sustainable change in your organization.